You know my story, right? Rise to fame from the pain to glory, right?
I'm blocked. I can pull up a topic and we can shoot the shit and record some content if you want.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How simple the game can be when you can beat the battle in your head.
Yeah, dude, that's a good one, man. It's this week. So I don't know where I was or what I was watching, but somebody said something exactly like that. But the way they said it stuck with me. It was I'm seeing things behind my eye.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like, and you have to change your lens to see what's in front of you and stop looking what's behind your eyes. And I was like, oh man, that for some reason it locked in with me this week. And that was like Tuesday, I think it was. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. It's so, we get so into our head sometimes that we make simple actions way more difficult than they have to be.
Yep. And a lot of times too, it's like people look at it, whether it's financial or it's just motivation and things like that. Like I example last Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
they had to fire a client because they just weren't doing the stuff that they needed to do. So it was like every week we're sitting here like having a meeting about what I'm supposed to do. And it got to the point where like we were in our third meeting and they still hadn't done some of the fundamental things that they needed to do within our action plan. And I was just like, you know what, guys? My big thing in 2024 is I'm not pulling people along with me. Like I'm going to keep running, and if you're willing to run with me and look me in the eye when we're running down the aisle or running down the lane or whatever, I'm on board. Let's do it. But I'm not sitting here. I'm not going to keep yelling at you to catch up or catch your breath or whatever. You know.
Yeah. It's a good
I think
way
it's
to
fun. A lot of people get like some people are calling it a little bit of tough love on my end, but I'm just kind of like, it's been 20 years and it's one of those things where a lot of people that have been entrepreneurs have gotten away with too much by talking, wasting time talking, and then it wastes all of our time on when we could just be executing. Because it's at the end of the day, we all know who they are. We know within 5 minutes of them talking whether or not they're just a bullshitter or if they're gonna ever take action.
Yeah. It's I think like everybody has to accept what they're creating. And so if they were running super slow and you were slowing down to keep up with them, well, you have to accept that you are doing that. And there's I used to call it consequence, and I'm working on this. I'm going to call it result now. You're accepting the result. So if you do that, there is a result for doing that.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And I want to go to what you said at the beginning was the simple things. And I think a lot of times people get overwhelmed, myself included, when you're getting into a project and you go online to try to see if somebody else has done it or you're trying to find out if an idea is good or not. And all you're seeing is the people that have made billions and millions at it and things like that. But let's talk a little bit, like you said, about simple steps and simple actions, like kind of getting people to scale an idea from where they want it to be to where it can be immediately.
Yeah. Well, what was interesting because I like looking at patterns. They always fascinate me, right? And you start looking at patterns and you understand one thing that I understand is it's usually two things that you need to know how to do when you're doing anything. If you're looking to eat right, or if you're looking to get in shape, it's eat right and exercise. If you're looking to be a fighter, you have to know how to punch and not be punched. If you're looking to be an entrepreneur, you need to learn how to have the right message and market that message to the right people. If you are a family person, you have to learn how to, with kids specifically, love them and communicate with them. If you want to learn how to sell correctly, you have to learn how to communicate and negotiate. And what people will say is, and this is where it gets kind of difficult, knowing it and understanding it are two very different things. So now that you know that there's two things that you have to do, now you have to go understand those things. And to understand those things, you have to go through the process. And so I know what I'm giving people, it's not always easy, but it is simple.
Yeah, I think like it's when you break it down as well, whether it being financial or anything like that, it's nothing actually until you've taken the one completed step of deciding you want to do it. And I
Yeah.
think like everybody worries about the paperwork and the business plans and all that stuff, but really none of it matters until you've made that internal decision. And that could be a business, or it could be, you know, for me, like it was the same thing for sobriety. Like it wasn't, I went through rehab and it didn't click. I went through counseling, it didn't click. It wasn't until I decided that I was done destroying my life that it then clicked. And that could be with anything for any single person. It could be for working out. And it could be like, it'd be like, hey, I'm gonna start working out on Monday. We've all been there.
Yep.
How many times that Monday turned into an entire year, you know,
Yep.
before you actually did it? And how do you help with, how do you, like, from a process standpoint, maybe giving a little bit of advice for somebody to be able to drill down and be able to kind of manipulate their brain and hack their brain to make that first step and just stop talking and stop convincing and start doing.
So there's the most important thing that I see in anything is confidence in something. And then there's a way to actually achieve confidence. Like there's an actual way to put it together. And one of those ways is personal achievements. So a personal achievement will increase confidence. The other is being around the right people who are going to support you. And then the other, let me get my phone real quick because I have this framework and I'm playing with it because I think it's an important framework to have. Let me see here. And I'll even use what we're doing right now, going outside of your comfort zone. So it's stretching outside of your comfort zone. Now, what's really cool about that is right now we're on a podcast, right? We're having a conversation. And I could have said, like, I got to know the answer. So I'm just going to use those two because I don't want people to think that I don't know the answer. And the truth is I know the answer. That's the funny thing because I live the answer. Going outside of your comfort zone, that's what I do. But sometimes we get so busy doing, we forget to do for others. And so me saying, well, I know the answer and others don't have to know the answer, or they can only know a part of the answer. Well, that didn't sit right with me. Integrity is the most important thing to me. And integrity to me means, okay, give them the framework that will support them. And so now, because I'm practicing having that framework locked into my head so that I can say it just like that, like it's nothing, to make people's journey easier as they're going through their process. And so I bring up confidence makes it easier because when you know that, now you have awareness. And when you have awareness, you can start asking yourself, okay, do I have the personal achievement for this? Now, what's cool with personal achievement is you can, if it happens in one arena, you can actually transfer it into another arena. And I had people, this was really interesting on my journey. I fought inside the UFC, and not only did I fight in it, I've won inside the UFC. And I've had certain people say, oh, you're going to figure this business thing out because you've won inside the UFC. And I've had other people say, it doesn't matter that you fought in the UFC. You're in business now. It's different. And the truth is, they're all right. Everyone's right. Now, what do I take? What's going to serve me? And I go, which piece is going to serve me? For me personally, I think everything serves me because I'll take the people who actually rooted me on and cheered me on, and I'll take the haters, and I don't have to come back to the haters and say, yeah, I made it. How do you like that? I don't really care. Haters are going to hate. They're going to find something else to hate on later anyway. So it doesn't really matter. And so there's that piece. So I have the personal achievement, and then I've transferred it over to something else. Then I have people who are on my side. And since I believe everyone's on my side anyway, everyone's on my side. So I'm like, I'm going to take energy from everything. Now I am going to say, okay, do I want to be around certain people or do I not want to be around certain people? So when they speak, they're letting me know, ooh, I really like being around this person. I don't like this person so much. So let me back out of that. And then it's constantly testing your comfort zone, stretching your comfort zone. Now, stretching your comfort zone is stretching it with complete intentionality. not unnecessarily stretching your comfort zone. Because I could say, all right, well, instead of driving to work, let's actually put the car in neutral and then push the car to work. That's stretching your comfort zone. It's not comfortable. Okay, well, does that serve me? Like, what am I looking to do? What am I looking to achieve? If it doesn't serve my achievement, then don't do it. Makes no sense to do it. So at one time, pushing a car down the street did serve me when I was a fighter, because I was getting ready to fight with other grown men. But as an entrepreneur, that doesn't help my message or my market or any of that stuff. I'm just going to walk on the treadmill because I want to maintain health, but I don't want to kill myself unnecessarily.
It's interesting when you say that, because that brings to light also that mentality and then physicality of anything, where it's like, you can the mental part, no matter what path you're in life, whether it's to become a UFC fighter, to become a business owner, or just to get through a 7-day work week, it's really all mental is the connecting feature between all of it. It's not, because at the end of the day, if you're not mentally with it, the physical part's not going to come and help you along the way.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I look at, I talk about alignments when things are aligned properly. The mental, I talk about the mental, the heart, and also the skill. And what's interesting, people say you don't have to be passionate. And I disagree with that. And this is why. You have to be passionate towards something. Even if it's just to get to where you're looking to go, passion is important. If you have no passion, you're not going to do it. You're just not going to do it, no matter how easy it is either.
And it's really, it's passion. And also some people will be like, well, if somebody might, let's say somebody might have an emotional issue where they don't have necessarily feel emotions in a very sensitive way, or they kind of passion, that word doesn't resonate for them. It'd be the same for purpose. For those types of people that might not have an emotional passion, they need to be able to relate to that and say, what is my purpose in life? If your purpose is to achieve X, then that's your purpose every morning to wake up. And if it's not a sentimental thing and it's not a personal drive, you at least have to set that on the board and have something you're slapping every day on the way out the door.
Yeah, 100%. And what's really cool is using the words that serve you best, right? Figure out the words that are going to actually drive you. And I use I don't motivate, I inspire, because to inspire, it's inside of you. So I have to pull something out of you. To motivate, I got to push stuff into you. But if you don't want to be pushed, you're not going to be, no matter what. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, when you're in adolescence and in that infancy stage of, let's say, speaking of sports, you're being coached and it's being cultivated and all that stuff. But when you're an adult and you're going into it, if it's there, it's not. You know what I mean? There's no there's no coaching it out of you or anything like that. So really, you're an extractor at that point, as opposed to some sort of a motivator.
Yep, 100%.
While we're here too, like, let's talk a little, and this is all on the fly, anybody, as we're going back in post-production, for anybody listening, just know that this is organic, and it's one of the realest things on the internet at the moment. So, I'm going to leave this as organic as possible. Yeah, I'm not going to cut a lot up in post-production, because I want people to see literally on the fly how we're rolling this with this one. But let's go to you specifically, and like your path to the UFC. When you started out, go to really your first day of an organized sport, and then walk me through that emotion and what stage you were when you were like, I want to achieve the ultimate within this line in this sport.
Yeah. So what was interesting, I had my first professional fight. I was supposed to die in that fight because the guy was way more technical than I was. Like, he was just a way better technician. And I remember my coach watched video on him. Like, we took this fight on a 2-day notice. And my coach didn't have time to watch him. I didn't really watch him. And he watches the video and he gets silent. And that didn't feel very comfortable. I'm like, oh crap, he sees something's not good. And I tell him, what do you think? And he goes, this guy looks like Jordan. And Jordan, just to give people context, he's one of our coaches. And he's amazing, super technical, super gifted, super dangerous, right? I go, that's what I thought. I thought he looked like Jordan. So I'm sitting here like, I'm going to die. Like, I'm going to die. But whatever. I'm going out to do what I got to go do. And the song comes out because I didn't get to choose my song. They chose my song for me. The song is All I Do Is Win, 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 no matter what. Because I had 3 amateur fights before this fight. So yeah, I won, but I won against 3 amateurs, and I'm getting ready to go against this pro. I'm like, wow. I didn't know the pressure could be this big, but whatever. Here it goes. I'm coming out to All I Do Is Win, Win, Win. So bell rings. We fight the fight. And in the first round, I'm doing okay. But I'm wrestling him because I know I'm a better wrestler. I had an ASU background in wrestling. But I'm getting tired, like dead tired. And so I go to my corner after the first round commences. And Trevor's like, we got to stand with him. Like, you're getting too tired. And I knew he was right. But I'm like, I'm getting ready to get knocked out. I see this guy fight. He's dangerous.
You're just clinching.
Yeah. I'm like, but whatever. Like, I'm going to throw and see what happens and figure it out. So I get out there. I'm throwing with reckless abandon. And it's backing him up. He's backing away. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't. And he hit me with some mean shots too. Like, I mean, he was stinging me a couple times. So the third round, we're getting ready for the third round, and I have some confidence because I'm like, I'm still in there. Like, he's hitting me, he's tagging me, but he's not. I'm still in there. I'm in the fight. And then the third round, I'm throwing haymakers and doing my thing and making it happen, and I end up winning the fight. So I win the fight, and that's where I go, Trevor, I want to fight in the UFC in less than a year. Like, I'm like, all right, I already did one crazy thing. Why not add another crazy thing to it? Why not? And he gives this look, judgmental look, by the way, and he didn't say anything. But the next day comes around, he sits me down. He goes, no one fights in the UFC. It's like in less than a year, it's not happening. Like, there's no way. He goes, it's the best of the best in the world. There's no way it's happening. I go, well, I got to try. Can I at least try? Like, can we try together? And he kind of nods. He goes, all right, we'll give it a try. And brother, we got there in 10 months. We got there in less than a year. And we're out there. He goes, how did we do this? I go, Trevor, you were with me the entire time. We just took it one step at a time. That's it.
That's exactly it, man. And I just, to think about that energy and then to harness that energy in that moment when you made that decision and then carry that on for 10 months, because now my next question is like, I mean, those 10 months, how did you guys take the focus and how did you push all the distractions out and really go linearly like that? Because that's going from your creative mindset to a very linear mindset with a very shortened timeline. So kind of how did you guys kind of orchestrate that between each other?
Most people, there's always signs in what we are. There's patterns. That pattern had already been developed in me. And it got developed in me. I was in second grade, and there was this Spanish book, and my mom wanted me to learn how to read this damn thing. And I'm like, this is bullshit. Like, I'm like, this couldn't cuss back then. But I was thinking it. So we spent all night learning to read this book effectively. All night. For a second grader, that feels like an eternity. Like it's an eternity because you're a kid. So as a kid, it feels like forever and you just want to go to sleep. You don't want to do this thing. So I get to school the next day and I'm reading the book so well that I'm outperforming the teacher. I can read the book better than the teacher can read the book. And when there's words that they can't pronounce, I was pronouncing it and the teacher would point to me. Well, that gave me a sense of pride, made me feel really good. And so I can put in astronomical reps that other people have trouble putting in because I know the results for putting in the reps. And so when we talk about passion or purpose or whatever it is, it's you can see it before everyone else can see it. So once I said I want to fight in the UFC in less than a year, I even used weak language when I said I want to try. Can I at least try? Try is weak language. And there were times where I would use weak language, but I took strong action. And as I've gone through it, I've gotten better in my leadership because it's strong language plus strong action equals like boom, right? But it's a rep just like anything else. If you put reps in something long enough, you transform. You're different than what you were. And so that second grade kid was that UFC fighter. There wasn't any NF ands or buts. Like I knew what I wanted. I knew what I was going after.
That's it's just one of those things that I get amazed talking to people like yourself who do talk about things like that as such an attainable way, because it is. And but it involves the work. And I think that talking with people like yourself about the passion, and even to this moment, like you still viscerally feel that. Like you still feel that moment. Like I saw it in you, I felt it in your voice. Like you were there on the side of the ring, and you were feeling that decision. And how much today for your life has being and achieved what you've achieved in that world, how has it exposed you to various other things you never thought maybe possible? Did you ever think that you'd be coaching, or did you ever think that you'd be, inspiring others, or was that always part of the plan, or did it kind of come later as the opportunities that presented themselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always had the purpose, even if I don't always have the answer. The answers will come when they come. And my biggest passion, I wanted to teach people how to love one another, how to truly love one another. And so I saw it in the UFC, and it didn't happen the way, and it wasn't going to happen this way. I saw myself winning the belt and telling everybody, you got to love each other. And then like everybody just started, they were in a better place.
Just heart flying everywhere.
I swear it was the Rocky movies that did that to me. So
damn you, Sly.
yeah, I'm like, made it sound so easy. So I've always had that. I've always had the desire to remind people to love one another and the importance to love one another. But the lessons will show themselves. They show themselves. And so as I was going through my process, everyone kept calling me coach. Like I didn't say, well, I'm going to be a coach. Everyone kept calling me it. So I'm like, oh, well, I probably should start coaching. Then I got certified. And then I'm like, oh, crap, I've been coaching since I was 4. Like, this is what I do. It's who I am. And a coach, to me, because they go, well, now everyone's saying they're a coach. Well, anyone can be a coach. Like, that's the truth. And this is why. Coaches are also coachable. Leaders are also followers. Leaders are action takers. Leaders do certain things. Leaders are always learning. I'm never done learning. There's always going to be something new for me to learn, even if I'm learning how to serve the people that I'm serving better than I did before. And so when people and I'm generalizing right now, but there's people who have a very weak mentality, and then there's people who have a very strong mentality. And that could be, I don't like the word growth and fixed, and this is why. Growth also fixes things. Whereas if you're on a nonstop growth mentality and you get no results, well, that's just as dangerous as having a fixed mentality to me. If you're constantly trying, I got to learn more, I got to learn more. If I learn more, yeah, you still aren't getting the results. So that kind of sucks too. Like, oh, I got all this knowledge, but I have no results to show for it. And so it's figuring out that balance.
It really, that getting that balance through there and kind of working through it's all a balance. And I think that's a kind of key that I think it's resonates through a theme and everything you kind of have talked about, you and I both have talked about, which is that balance in whether it's your focus and your energy, but also your output and your input and all that balance and making sure everything goes through. What do you think, as far as looking back in your career and stuff like that, what would you say is kind of what fight, and I don't mean necessarily from a physical standpoint, but just as a general, what was your most challenging fight in your career?
Definitely my second fight. As if I wasn't bad enough on that pro fight, this was an amateur fight, but it was against a Muay Thai who had won belts. Like, so he was no scrub by any means. And he kicked like a mule. And so I'm taking these kicks. I still have lumps in my leg to this day from these damn kicks. And I'm eating them and I'm eating them and I'm doing my best to fight in the way that I can fight. And just how we go personal achievements. So that personal achievement was you can win even when it sucks, because it sucked. Of course I wanted to stop. Like, it's just like, I'm getting my leg kicked in. I couldn't walk upstairs for like 2 weeks. It was so painful. Yeah, it was so painful. And my leg got so fat. But I proved something to myself. Because if you can go through that, well, now you can go through things you don't want to go through and still come out on top. And it was a reminder for me that it really actually propelled me as a fighter. It made me a better fighter. One, because I won it. Two, because of the way that I won it. Like, he was the better fighter there too. He was technically better, and I didn't even know how to check a kick properly. And let me tell you, Nate, I learned real fast though. I learned really fast.
I always tell sometimes people will be like, "What's the fastest thing you ever learned?" And I say, when I first went out for rugby, nobody told me when you go down with the ball that everybody can stomp you and do whatever, punch you and do whatever to get to the ball. So what I learned real fast was when I had that ball and I went to the ground. Oh yeah, I was like, why the hell is everybody just kicking the shit out of me? And everybody's like, because they're allowed to get to the ball. Let me tell you what, the second time I fell with the ball, I pitched that son of a bitch so far away. I was like, I'm not touching it. I don't have it anymore.
I've seen some mean stuff in rugby too.
You only have to make that mistake once, and you'll get rid of the ball. You'll let go.
Yeah,
of that
I'll tell you, nothing solves a problem like pain.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, hey, when you went to the tail end, when you were at you were getting ready to transition your life, and you're like, okay, you're in full fighter mode. You know what I mean? As you're in, and you've achieved, and you're in the UFC. When you then became into the transition of you're going out of full fighter mode, and you're going to go into, let's say, education and leadership and consulting and things like that. What were some of the challenges when you made that transition for yourself internally, as far as, was it the change in the routine of lifestyle? Was it the change of purpose? Were there any challenges that you faced when you made that transition?
So the purpose was still the same. Teach people how to love. Like my purpose has actually refined more, because it's teach people how to love, be conscious and abundant. And then I took it to teach leaders how to love, be conscious and abundant, because the leaders will actually it'll shift people to a new default. So my purpose has refined more, and I started learning what I needed to do. I didn't quite know what I needed to do. Like when I said message, market, match, you don't understand that. It's Bruce Lee, I feel, says it best. He goes, to an amateur, a punch is just a punch. And to a professional, a punch is just a punch. But there's all of those pieces that you have to go through to understand the nuances, the depths, and to the point you can do it consciously. You don't even have to think about it anymore. It's just second nature. But building that second nature is not always the easiest thing to do. Like it's a process, just like tying your shoe as a kid.
What as far as that process goes for you, like for me specifically, like I work the best in a very like right now I'm up in an attic with the lights out behind me and I just have one light above me. So and I've always been like that. Like as a kid, like I always wanted to I always box myself in to laser focus because I'm so easily distracted that I know like when it's time to focus, I have to physically build an environment of focus around me. How is that what's your process like when you need to kind of clear space and dial in?
Just what you said, environment. Now, what was interesting, there were areas that I didn't get, like its level of awarenesses too. As a leader, you're a leader when the cage opens. When you walk in the cage closes, and then the cage opens again. And so there's different Cliffords depending on what's happening. Now, I didn't understand that as much in entrepreneurship, that I had to be really, really intentional with what I was doing. And so I tried playing father and I tried being entrepreneur at the same time. And that's just, it's a very chaotic space to do the back and forth. Now, it doesn't mean you can't figure the chaos out. You can. You can do that. That's a choice for the person, right? Everybody has to do the way that works for them. But if I'm focused on what it is that I'm doing, it makes it easier to do. And what's interesting, people look at what people do and they say, oh, this is hard, or oh, this isn't so hard. We decide what's hard and what's not with our eyes when our eyes are the biggest bullshitters on the planet. Like, I mean,
you're exactly right, man. That goes back to that quote I was saying in the beginning too. And they're not even looking through the right lens. They're not looking in the forward lens. They're looking in the backwards lens.
Yeah. So I'm like, wow, well, people are really good at saying what's hard and what's easy, but they don't really know. Like they don't really know until they understand it. And when they understand it, that's when they go, oh crap. Like I resonate with entrepreneurs so much, even more so now, because they are dealing with their challenges and people don't see them do, oh, you're just talking on the phone. Oh, or you're just doing that. Like you're not doing anything. Like
just messing around.
You know how much mental energy goes into going through the process that they're going through? Like, of course you don't, because you're not doing it. They're like, oh, you're just giving birth to a kid. Like, no, you're going through a process. A woman's going through a process. But when we can see the physicalness of something happening, now it's real to us. But if we don't see it, well, it didn't happen. That didn't do anything. It's easy.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I'm glad you brought that up because that is a common thing. And it's like, it's even the same when you talk to like family members and things like that. It's very hard to have people understand what's going, and not in a poor me sympathy. That's not what it is. It's just to actually understand because, like you said, it's that purpose and that passion. So just as much as for us as entrepreneurs and business owners and founders and creators, just as much as it's fun to share the final delivery, it's also the journey is fun too. So it's hard to collaborate or hard to communicate sometimes to other people who kind of, I don't want to say like don't understand, but sometimes don't care about the journey. They just want to enjoy the deliverable. And I think that
they love that. That's a human trait right there. I'll tell you, if you had a race car driver and there were like 30 voices talking to him all at the same time, it's just like, he's probably going to crash into the wall. or she's probably going to cash into the wall. Like it's not going to be good for anybody. And so when you can empathize and sympathize, it allows people to take their role and support that person through their journey, because it's easier when we have support. But it's also important for the entrepreneur to, like, I think they become better leaders because we got to learn how to communicate with people too, and let them know, like, okay, how do I communicate this so they understand what I'm doing?
And that right there is, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is my Achilles heel, my biggest thing, my biggest issue in the world, that I'm 39 years old and I still have not conquered is, and I have a degree. Here's how embarrassing it is. I have a degree from Drexel University in corporate communications and public relations, yet I still cannot, sometimes when I get excited about a passionate thing, I sometimes cannot distill down the message to the receiver. And sometimes I overwhelm people because I throw everything at them from my perspective, and I don't distill it down before it gets out of my mouth, and then I lose their attention.
Yeah.
Or I also lose their confidence because I don't effectively communicate what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's, and I look at the humanness of us, like, being able to say, yeah, I don't always get it. I appreciate that and respect it, because I think it's important to let people know, hey, I'm doing the best that I can with what I got. That's it.
I always make fun of myself in the middle of it. I'll be like, pull the ripcord, what I say. And I'm like, I can tell, because I'm also intuitive, and I'm like very empathic with people. And I can tell when that eye glazes over, even on a Zoom or in person, I know. And I pull the ripcord in the moment, and I'm like, I'm going to backtrack what I just said. And I'm going to rephrase that. And everybody laughs. And that's part of my disarming, feature of my life, is like, I've always been very intuitive of the physical attributes of like who I'm communicating with. And I know, like, I know when I'm messing up, and I'm not too arrogant to continue to go. Now, back when I used to drink a lot, people will tell you the stories I used to tell. I never shut up, but that was because I was drunk and I didn't know where the barrier was. But now I have that line of sight of sobriety that I know when I'm losing somebody.
I had a 2 years of drinking, and your faculties aren't quite there. your faculties aren't quite there. And I'm like, I think I'm done. In fact, my 2 years of drinking was before I went on my fighter's quest. And another thing that I do want to remind everyone and myself, to make a decision means to cut off. Yep. And so when you make a decision, you cut off other things. And so when I decided that I wanted to fight in the UFC, I cut out everything else, because I knew it wouldn't have made sense. Like, oh, and I'll join the swimming team, and I'll do this over here, and I'll do that over there. But don't get me wrong, I absolutely have done this as an entrepreneur, where I'm like, all right, I'm going to do like 20 things. I'm going to do them great.
One of them's going to work.
I was like, oh, crap. I'm still learning too. It's the jack of all trades, master of none, whatever that phrasing is. Yeah. Yep.
I always grew up in my line of work was always grabbing whatever projects were there. So I naturally became that like utility man that has like 1,000 different experiences, but nothing is like immersively deep, until I realized, like, when I started doing this podcast, I was like, the common theme that I've done in all of it is tell stories. And it's like, whether it's my story or tell somebody else's story to connect them to somebody else. That was always, whatever project it was, whether it was like literally like shoveling shit, or like huffing buckets of fish into a creek, like working with a reserve, or like doing something in the corporate world and going to Vegas for a conference and doing a speech. No matter what it was all telling stories and stuff like that. So it's interesting when we begin to distill down our lives, and we realize we're like, oh, I did so many things, I can't figure out one. You can always find one. And I think like that was where this year, like, I've came into my one focus, which was like, what's the one goal this year? And it's to empower entrepreneurs and small business owners. That's my goal. Yeah. And so everything I do just has to touch that. How much money do I make? It doesn't matter, because as long as I'm doing that, everything else will come into play.
Yeah. And even like, I love that because it's intentionality, and in intentionality comes connection. Like, we didn't randomly just get connected.
Right.
There was a way that happened. And another thing, you reached out to me, and I felt like it was a very articulated message, because there's tons of people who are going to tell you all the amazing things they're going to do for you and how they're going to make your life better. Hey, well, hey, I don't even know you. I know nothing about you, but I'm going to change your life. Like, wow, that's a little arrogant, but okay.
It's the old, it's the government. We're here to help. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I'm just like, there's a lot of messages that I don't read, right? And it's one of those spaces. Now, with that being said, I have been that person before too. Like, I'll send a message and it's not the best message, and I've actually gone back and redelivered a message.
So have
And it
I.
actually, yeah, and they come back and they actually connect with me. Like, hey, oh, thank you.
Yep.
And I say self-acceptance leads to self-awareness. Is to say, like, okay, we're all more the same than we are different. I've made mistakes, you've made mistakes. What are we going to do with it? And I use a very observing lens. I'm not in like, oh, well, you messed up here and you messed up here and you did this wrong. And okay, what are we going to do with it? Like, I'm not there to judge a person. I'm there to say, okay, we got this. Now what do we do? And what do you want to do? What result do you want to have?
And it goes back to what you kind of had said about with people seeing that we're talking about people enjoying the final deliverable. Like, for me personally, like, my Mondays and Tuesdays, like, I like to put in the background. I don't know if you listen to or watch Kill Tony. It's like I'm into stand-up comedy and stuff like that. So it's Tony Hinchcliffe, Shane Gillis, all those guys. So every either I catch it live on Mondays or I catch it on Tuesday morning while I'm doing stuff. But I for one thought that was a new thing. You know what I mean? Like, I thought it was a new thing that came out. I thought it was genius. And then as I get to learn his story more, I'm like, this guy was a writer on every single roast on every Comedy Central that I loved. He's been in this 20 years, and he started that exact concept, Kill Tony, 17 years ago. And it just now spiked. And it's one of those things where sometimes people don't realize, sometimes it's timing. And you might have to grind out something for you. It's not going to be 17 days. It might be 17 years before you hit that. And realizing that reality has to sink in sometimes too, where, yeah, you can really run hard and get it in 10 months, and you can get it in 12 months, and you can get it in 10 years. And sometimes you just grind it out for 17, 20 years, and then you spike.
Yeah. There was a guy, I can't remember this guy, but the way he hit me, I thought it was timing, and positioning.
Oh, nice.
I thought that's what it was. And then I learned something else. It is market and message. It's market and message. And you can get really, really good at market and message. And you can also create your own market and your message. And you're right. The Kill Tony thing, I would love to dissect it and understand it. Like, what was the thing that gave it that spike? Like, what was the thing? And it's not always it's not the staying on something alone, but it is the experience on staying on something. There's something about the experience.
For that, I think it's that momentum of community. And I think that for what Kill Tony did, it wasn't just Tony in a webcam in his basement. It's like a community for 17 years. So he's built this thing over time where, like, he might not have been like famous where everybody knew him, but he's got a massive army of like loyal followers.
Yeah.
He's like under the radar for so long. And now it's just that army's just exploded to, you know, the size of a country. You know, it's literally the number one live podcast in the world right now. And to think about it as like one of those things, and I think it goes back to, you know, it goes back to like kind of the style that Joe Rogan runs with, where it's like he's kind of spearheaded his thing on the podcast world, and then really brought so many other people and brought those comics into the podcast world. And everybody all of a sudden realized, oh my God, podcasts or comics actually have a realistic outlook on life. You know what I mean? They're not not stuck in the clouds, but they're all, you know, and they're also depressed and stuff like that. But they also they also see reality because they have to constantly be observing the world to generate content to make a living. So
I mean,
when you have a group of people that are constantly observant and constantly perceiving, no wonder that as a society, we're like all of a sudden we're connecting with them, that they have a platform outside of just giving jokes. And we're like, oh, they're really smart people. It's like, yeah, they always were. Those jokes
that's
were
so
good.
deep.
That's what you and I were saying. Those
Yeah.
jokes were the deliverable. What we're
Yeah.
watching from them on podcasts is what is of everything they naturally were doing anyway to get to that stand-up special.
Yeah. No, I mean, what you say is extremely powerful. And I look at, as a fighter, I was extremely observant. I don't like getting hit and hurt just to get hit and hurt. Like, I'm trying to figure out how to do that as little as possible. Like, as little as possible. And I go, oh man, like that's why entrepreneurship can be kind of hard if you don't know what feedback loops to look for. Fighters, you don't even have to think about the feedback loop. Everyone knows they don't like getting the crap beat out of them. Like, everybody knows that. And a comic, they are looking at the feedback loops of the audience. They can tell, is the audience leaning in? Are they laughing? Are they booing? Like, what are they doing? And when you can be that consistent observer and figure out, okay, what's working, what's not working, why is it working, why isn't it working, they're constantly adjusting, constantly. And sometimes you can get so comfortable in something, it almost becomes boring to people after a while. It's so interesting. Like, the thing they love becomes like, oh, well, now this is boring. I've already seen this. And so you do have to constantly be reinventing and inventing yourself. What I'm grateful for is Taylor Swift is this way. She is very, very authentic and real to who she is. And people either love her or they hate her. And she just is who she is. And that's kind of the road that I play, where I'm like, I'm just going to be who I am, because people are going to do what they're going to do anyway. Like, if they're going to want to love me, they're going to want to love me. And if they're going to want to hate me, they're going to want to hate me.
I spent my entire career selling things up until a couple months ago. And I did a video like a couple months ago. It ended up being one of the highest like viewed videos that I ever put up. And it was literally just me saying I'm done selling things. And it was like going to just showing, not selling. So like, I'm not going to go convince anybody anything. I'm just going to say, here's what I do and here's what I've been doing. If you're interested in it, come on board and let's have some fun. If not, it's kind of like you said about the way I introduce people to the podcast as a guest. It's just one sentence. And I spent 3 years on that podcast until I got to that sentence. And all it was prior was exactly the other stuff you said. I was giving people statistics and I was giving people reasons to be with me or reasons to come on the show. And then it was just like, you know what? I'm just going to, and not cocky and not arrogantly. It's just like, I know who I am and I'm finally comfortable with who I am, which is a new feeling for me. And being finally comfortable with it, being able to just be like, hey, this is me. This is what I'm all about. Here's the website. Check it out. If you like it, follow up and let's book it. If not, have a great life. And I wish the best for you. And no big deal. No issues. It's just, and really it was like talking to people like yourself has really refined that for me. And I got to give you credit for that, as well as some other guests that have just done a lot of outside perspectives and conversations. And I know that I put myself out there because I put myself out as a vulnerable person, but also I put myself out there as an opportunity to connect with people in a vulnerable way, because that's ultimately really, if you're not vulnerable, are you ever really connecting? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's one of those lessons. It's the hardest lesson for people too, because are you connecting with who you want to be connected with, or are you connecting with who you're programmed to be connected with?
Yep.
And some people won't even get what I mean when I say that. And some people will clearly get what I mean when I say that, because we get programmed to be a certain way and we think that's the way. And it's like, is it really?
Right.
And you just ask the question and let them sit on it. They get to decide.
No, you're exactly right. Hey, man, dude, thanks so much for taking the time and chatting today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
That was was everything I hoped for and more in the moment. So
Yeah.
I cherish and I appreciate the conversations with you, buddy.
Yeah, I appreciate you as always. And so I think we have like 8 minutes. So if you want to talk now about what I got going on, and you can talk
Yeah.
about
Let's
what you
talk
got
about what
going
you
on.
got. Yeah, absolutely, man. Lay it on me.
Okay, so I'm looking to connect with 7-figure business owners who are doing well, but they want to get to that next stage. And I'm going to put in writing what that looks like exactly, so you can send it to people that you would think like these are the people who would really need to check this out. And if you're comfortable with it, because I always ask that question, I will, if you're comfortable with it, connecting me with them, because I want to be in that position where I want to have a conversation with them and see if it's something that would be a good fit for them, see if they'd be interested in it. And if they're not, they're not. But I want to position it with my warm audience specifically.
Yep. No, that's perfect, man. That's really easy. That's easy as far as that puts together there. And
Yeah.
I can put together a warm list and reach out to them and offer it up, as well as
Nice.
cold. And no, obviously we can never control anybody's decision, so we can just always do is all we can do is put it out.
Not even to try.
That's perfect. Yeah, once you have that together in a white paper,
Okay.
I'll orchestrate into an email drip campaign, and then I'll put it out to the network and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. And then the other thing, if you want to grade that, because I want to continually polish it up as I'm going through my process. I know what it is that I do, and I'm going to get better at communicating it more and more. What I'm seeing is I am an inner warrior coach who helps turn pressure into fuel. And the way that I do that is through coaching in mind, heart, and skill. The other thing that I'm doing is I'm working with a marketing strategist who really puts the foundations in place so that they can effectively continue to do the 20% that loads the 80%. And they're no longer doing that 80% that needs the 20%. They have systems in place to work that.
That's perfect. Perfect,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then also, for you to know as well, there's on the back end, my partner John and I, he's a rugby guy that I've known for about 20 years now or so, and he's formally in we established the stuff with the business. He's working on a software in the back end of things that if you ever need like topics to discuss or anything like that, and also from your content, as you start to put content out there in video form and stuff, it'll go back and archivally go back and pull all the footage and timestamps and things like that, as well as for you. If you ever want to do like for that marketing company, if they ever want to do like reconciliations of archival footage of you or like interviews and all kinds of stuff from back in the day, this software, you can just put the hyperlinks in it and it'll literally pull all the trending topics. It'll pull the quotes. It'll pull all kinds of stuff out of it. So just letting you know that's
can you share it with me? Is that your software?
Yeah, we've been developing it for like so it's like he's been my like best friend from ever since we were I guess 19 years old, and he just retired from Vanguard. He is an IT guy, and he built the entire website for Vanguard and all the financial prospecting portals that they use in the background across the country. And he basically saved up enough money, was financially responsible his entire life. We butted heads all the time about it because I wanted to do stuff and he didn't want to go. But guess he retired at 39, not me.
Yeah.
So he retired and he's like, I'm good now. I got my life is set now for the rest. I have a set salary for the rest of my life. And I want to be an artist for the rest of my life. So in November, December, he retired officially from Vanguard and then became an artist. And then he started listening to the podcast. And as he was listening to the podcast in the studio, he was like, dude, I love the podcast. What can I do to help you out? Like, maybe this is finally that business we've always talked about. And sure enough, he came in and basically took my chaotic analog manual brain of 20 years of connecting and networking and all this stuff and put it all into an actual software system. So what it does is it archivally will go through our network and be like, in the future, once it's all uploaded, think of this, like you're going to come to me and you're going to say exactly what you just did. You're going to go, I want a 7-figure person and I want them ready for the next stage, 50 employees or more in Nevada. And then what's going to happen is this software goes in, takes that criteria, and then scours the internet, in addition to scours everything that's connected to all the data that was tied to our videos. And then all of a sudden we're going to give you a list and say, oh, here's these people that are a really good match for you.
Wow, that's awesome. That's really cool.
It blows my mind, dude. It really blows my mind.
Yeah.
And honestly, like a lot of people ask me like how we produce so much volume, because every day I'm doing 4, 5, or 6 videos, and I'm doing I'm doing an episode a day now, 2 episodes a day, one of FreeMind Local, and then one is the regular FreeMind. It has not taken up a lot of my time at all, because this system and the software part, once I put the video in there, it breaks it up, it chops it up, it gives me all the copy, all the content, all the hashtags and everything.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
send me the software.
Yeah. I'll send you the info and show you an example of it. Yeah.
Because I'm also creating, like, I want to create a menu for these business owners and entrepreneurs that I work with, so that I can effectively guide and see what's going to work for them. And it's getting clearer and clearer as I'm going through the process. So maybe you even have something like, oh, I got this, where it's just like, boom, it shows all the pieces that they need.
I tell you what, man, I could probably be a lot of help and speed things up for you. If you want to do something like that, where we set up some time where you go through some of these deliverables you're trying to show, I could maybe help you out with it as far as tweaking it and just give you some advice, or just say it's perfect as is. But if you want here's what I'll say. If you ever want an outside perspective on anything you're doing, please don't hesitate to ask. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. That's awesome.
Yeah. So absolutely, man. Well, hey, I won't hold you up anymore for this, but I appreciate it, man. And I like just being able to go on the fly. You're just a stand up dude, man. Thanks, man.
We hold it down, brother. We hold it down. I appreciate you too. And
Absolutely.
I'm sending you love and light. Hopefully Molly's good. I definitely we'll figure it out when we figure it out. Yeah. That's the name of the game.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out, man. Hey, I appreciate it.
All right, my brother. Have a great one. Talk soon.